Hi everyone, if you're new to my channel, my name is Jessica. So this is the support for addiction and mental health. So today I want to talk a little bit about addiction and the disease model. So I have my little friend with me here. This is Teddy. Teddy is your kind of average Facebook scroller who has very limited information on addiction and mental health. He kind of just shares posts without really understanding the information behind it, and that it's hugely stigmatizing. So Teddy, hi, thanks for being here with us. So is addiction a disease or is it a choice?
It's definitely a choice because you choose to use drugs or alcohol, so it's definitely a choice.
Okay, thanks Teddy. So it's definitely, it starts off as a choice. Not always. There are some, people that are born addicted. There's also some people that are prescribed medication that become addicted. So it's not always a choice, but for the most part, addiction starts off as your choice to use drugs or alcohol. But it stems a lot further than that. There's different reasons why. Some people use drugs or alcohol. For one, alcohol is socially acceptable. It's pretty much a rite of passage when you turn 21 to be able to purchase it and consume it. It's also used for celebratory reasons. We see them at weddings, we see them at birthdays, job promotions, things like that. We even see them at funerals. Alcohol is huge in this country. And it's, surrounded by, happy, and celebratory occasions. When you go to drink alcohol, you're not thinking, hey, I'm going to be addicted. It's legal. So you don't really see that much of a danger with it unless, your family has a history of addiction and they have conveyed that to you saying, hey, addiction runs in the family, you might want to stay clear, of alcohol and or anything else that's highly addictive. Which a lot of people don't want to talk about addiction in their family. A lot of people don't even know about it until, later on. Other people also start because, of a mental illness. If you have a mental illness, the, substance abuse co-occurs with it about 50%. It's huge. You use it to self-medicate your symptoms. If you had a mental health disorder yourself, or if you know one that struggled with one, it is, it's life-altering. It is, it comes along with symptoms that you have to live with, and some of these are, severe symptoms. When you have a more severe mental illness, like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, those are complicated disorders to have to live with. And sometimes, you have to change prescribers, you have to get referrals, insurance companies, and all this stuff comes into play to go to seek treatment. So it's not always that easy just to recover. Does that kind of understand some of it, Teddy?
Yeah, I just understand why some people get addicted and some people don't. So yeah, because I had ADHD and I got prescribed Adderall. And I didn't become addicted, and I don't know how other people do. And I've tried alcohol, and I didn't become addicted. Why did I become addicted, and other people do?
All right, Teddy, again, great questions. So you were prescribed Adderall were you diagnosed with ADHD?
Yeah, I had trouble concentrating in school and stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you were prescribed something. So did you take Adderall as prescribed?
Yeah, I took it as I needed.
Okay, so if you take something, that's prescribed to you, I'm assuming they gave you a low dose, and you needed that medication. So psychiatric medication isn't a bad thing. They are actually used, in treatment. So, if you have prescribed psychiatric medication, then you're treating a mental disorder. So you're using it in a correct way. Unless you kept... if you're using it as prescribed and you're not overly taking it and abusing it, then, the likelihood of you becoming addicted is, incredibly slim. You need to use more of a substance to become addicted to the substance. So, you know, the first time you drink alcohol, say you drink it once or twice a week or whatever, however you drink it, you're not really going to get addicted. Addiction is 50% genetic and 50% environmental. So, genetically, if you don't have a predisposition for addiction, the only other way you're going to get addicted is if you take more of the substance. And that happens is because substances such as alcohol and drugs hijack the brain's natural reward system, which is dopamine. Dopamine is only released when a behavior is done that is crucial to the survival of a species. So this is eating, sleeping, reproducing. So a little bit of dopamine is released when we do these life-sustaining activities. Drugs and alcohol hijack dopamine, and they release way more than you would ever have released when you perform sleeping or eating or sexual reproduction. So when your brain sees that much dopamine getting released, it thinks it is a huge, major factor for survival. The more dopamine that's released, the more the chemical structures in your brain are going to change, because your brain is always striving to be at a balanced homeostasis. So the more chemicals that are released, dopamine, then your brain has to work to equal that out. So it's at a form of equilibrium so that you can function. That's why you have people that are functioning addicts, functioning alcoholics, because your brain will eventually get to that point where you can function with these substances. That's why you will need more of the substance to achieve the same effect. This is tolerance. Once you stop using these substances, your brain goes into withdrawal, because it's like drugs and alcohol are like a spring that pressure onto your brain, and then when you take that spring off, your brain is, all this activity is going on, and your brain is going crazy. So you're getting withdrawal symptoms, anxiety, depression, you're nauseous, all these symptoms are going on because your brain's like, whoa, what's happening? Eventually your brain will work its way back to another state of equilibrium. But that's kind of how addiction works. So the more substance you use, the more you use it, the more likely you will become addicted. Not everybody will, but the more you use, you put yourself at a greater chance for it. Also, if you have the genetic predisposition for it, then you're going to become addicted. And there's a thing called cross addiction, where if you're addicted, say alcohol runs in your family, so you might not ever be addicted to alcohol, but you might be addicted to gaming. You might have, an obsession with eating, like an eating disorder. You could have gambling. Addiction can manifest in different ways. It doesn't always have to be substance related. So certain drugs have more of an ability to be addicting. So if you're taking Adderall in a low dose as prescribed, your potential for being addicted to it is really low. Drugs are classified through a system of their potential for abuse, and if they have any medical components to them, can they be medically used? So a Schedule 1 class drug has a high potential for abuse and has no accepted medical use. It has no benefit, so no medical benefits from it. So these are drugs such as ecstasy, heroin, things like that. So they're not used. The Schedule 2 drugs are more cocaine, amphetamine, fentanyl, oxycodone, and then we have our class 3s, anabolic steroids, ketamine, and then further psychiatric drugs, such as ADHD medication, and it still has a lower level ability to be abused, but it's also if you're using it correctly, you're not really going to get addicted, because if you're on it short term, you're using it as needed, it's not going to get, you're not going to get addicted to it, or your potential for addiction is a lot lower than if you were taking a drug that has a high potential for abuse, such as heroin or ecstasy or things like that. So does that kind of talk sense to you, Teddy?
Yeah, but like, why do we even care? Like, people with addiction, they're just like garbage and blah, blah, blah.
Alright, so the reason we care is because people with addiction are still people. We're still human. And just because, whether it was a choice or whatever the reason, doesn't mean we're any less likely, we're less human. So when you stigmatize these people, they already have low self-esteem, especially people with addiction and mental health disorders. Their self-esteem is pretty, already pretty low. They already feel bad about them. So, they're pretty down in the dumps as it is. So if you come across these Facebook posts where they go on social media, which are available everywhere, literally at our fingertips, people come across these posts and they just feel even worse about themselves. And a lot of people that have an addiction, they've tried to stay sober. It's not always as easy as, just stop cold turkey. Very few people can stop cold turkey and have a successful recovery. It takes dedication. It is a whole lifestyle change where you have to sometimes change your job, the people you're hanging out with. You even sometimes have to let go of family if the family was causing you to engage in drugs and alcohol. So it's not always simple. And relapse and recovery is huge, is prevalent. It's not uncommon to have a relapse, just because addiction is such a incredibly difficult thing to overcome, because it has a lot to do, because your whole mind, it actually interferes with your whole survival system. So yeah, this is definitely a difficult disorder to overcome. So it's not easy, and it takes time, just like as if you were dieting. You want to lose weight, and you can't go back to eating junk food if you want to stay at that lower weight. So it's the same thing. It takes a lifestyle change to maintain that weight loss, just as it does with addiction. If you want to maintain it, you have to change the things that you were doing, that got you into addiction in the first place. So we care because right now this country is going through an opioid crisis. Statistically, is 19.7 million Americans aged 12 and older have a substance use disorder as of 2017. That is a huge percent of our population, and the scary part is approximately 4% are of people with a substance use disorder are between the age of 12 and 17 years old. Between the ages of 12 and 17, you're not even old enough to vote, to have, they deem you not responsible enough to pick a political candidate to represent you, yet people at this age are drinking, and trying drugs for the first time, because your brain's not completely developed. So you're still, your reasoning and logic part of your brain is still immature. So your decision making isn't going to be, 100%. So if we think about the people that actually I first started drinking or doing drugs, it usually is between the ages of 12 and 17. These are kids trying this stuff. And, because your brain's not fully developed until I believe it's age 25. So if you use drugs or alcohol, you're interfering with the growth of your prefrontal cortex, which is your logic and your decision making. So you can, already predisposition yourself for, different disorders. As well as addiction, just by using these substances in childhood and adolescence. So we care about these people because, not everyone in addiction are scummy people. Some of these people have, they all have families. Some are moms and dads and brothers and sisters of, people that we care about. And it always seems to be a little different when it's, someone we care about. When it's someone we see on the street or someone we see, on the news that has OD'd in the car with babies in the back, we have so much sympathy for the children, which we should, but, we can't bash the parents. You can definitely criminalize them for it because there has to be consequences for our actions, but, treatment is definitely something I advocate for over, punishment. So I understand that, it's disgusting to see these things or see drunk drivers and innocent people get hurt. But, the only way to really prevent that is to help treat the underlying cause, which is the addiction. So when we stigmatize people, less people go for treatment and for help. So the more we send out the stigma, the less likely people are going to go and seek treatment. So that means more innocent people we put in harm's way. So does that kind of clarify that for you, Teddy?
Yeah, but I don't really care.
All right. That's okay. Everyone's going to have their own opinion, and that is totally okay. That is what makes this country so great. Just the only thing I want to leave you with is if you don't understand addiction, then don't share that post. If you think it's funny or you think, it holds merit, it doesn't. Very little things on social media are true. They're subjective, and they're meant to get a reaction and an emotion out of people. And for someone like me who has spent the last 6 years in school studying addiction, it's so heartbreaking to see the stigma with it and how wrong people are. And again, everyone's going to have their own opinion because everyone's affected by addiction in a certain way, especially if someone's been directly affected by someone with addiction, like like a parent or, a sibling, if someone stole from them, like it gives you a really nasty taste in your mouth of people with addiction. But you have to remember, not everyone in addiction is like that. There's people in addiction that you wouldn't even know are addicted, that, they're suffering in silence. And then, they'll go on Facebook and see that one of their cousins, or a family member posted this stigma, and they're like, oh, well, I know I can't go talk to them about it because they think I'm a scumbag. They have this, stigma with addiction, so I don't want to admit that I have it. And one of the hardest things in addiction is to admit you have a problem, because trying to seek help makes you feel weak and you try to do it yourself. So I guess the only thing I have really to say is you don't have to accept what I'm saying. Just don't further stigmatize any more people with these posts. They're not funny. They're not clever or cute. They're just they're pretty disgusting. And just don't be a Teddy. But if you liked this post, or if you like this little clip, let me know. This is actually something I got from Gestalt therapy. It's called the empty chair technique. If you want more on that, I'll put the information in the description. But I hope you guys all got something from this. And if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Teddy, he was straight.